Wendi,
Pastor
What?
Greene. It's okay if I call you Pastor Greene.
Yeah. So I mean, all right. So let me just tell you though. So like personally for me, back in the day, like in the South, it's like a little bit different. So I'm getting used to the Cali vibe. So in the South, it's a little bit more formal. So you call people Pastor Greene. Here, what I'm discovering, Pastor Fonz, your first name, and different things. So it's kind of the culture's a little bit different here than it is in the South. So if someone calls you by your first name in the South, depending like if it's someone that doesn't really know you that well, that's usually like somebody that's trying to disrespect you. Here, it's nothing. It's just like, yo, we cool.
Okay, so for here is Pastor Greene or?
So I'm probably personally more comfortable with Pastor Greene because that's what I'm accustomed to from pastoring the majority of my time in the South. But if people want to call me Pastor Alfonzo, that's fine too as well.
I like Pastor Alfonso.
You like Pastor Alfonso? Okay.
I do. I like Pastor Alfonso because it differentiates between, the Pastor Jeremiah Greene. We got two Greenes, so
I know.
Calling you Pastor Alfonso is like the direct line to, oh, I know who you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So. No, that is not. It is kind of confusing though. Like, because we'd be in a meeting and somebody like, yo, Pastor Greene, and well, at least for me, and I'd be like, are they talking about me? Or they talking about Jeremiah? Like, who are they talking about? So yeah. So either way is fine, but that would be what I'm most comfortable with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Pastor Alfonso.
That's cool. Yeah.
Like, so what is the worship culture? Like, what's the difference between the worship culture here and the one that you just left?
Oh, man. Worship culture here and the one that I just left. So I would say, like from the church that I was just at, they were very much about high praise, high worship.
Yeah.
I think that there were probably some more traditional elements that kind of were infused with that. So, like I do notice that you guys try to infuse like something for everybody.
Right.
So there was one set you did. I thought it was just amazing. You had put a hymn in there, but then it was something contemporary, but it transitioned very well. So like kind of like from the church I was just at, they would do similar things. But there was like really more choir, like choir was very, like that was a very present. So we had kind of like a more old school gospel choir. Then we had a chorale, where they were singing.
Yeah, they had the sheet music.
No, seriously. Everybody got the thing out. They flipping that thing. Right? So we had like a chorale, then a children's choir, youth choir, stuff like that.
Okay.
So, so I think the other thing too that we do differently here is that we have more of a CCM kind of infusion as well.
Right.
So that wasn't as much of my last culture. It was like more contemporary gospel, maybe some old chorale music, some more hymns, but we have more CCM. And I think that's really powerful because of the culture that we're in.
Right.
Because understanding worship, what we want to do with that is we want to make worship accessible to people, right? Because our goal is to connect them to God.
Right.
So if in this culture, what helps people connect with God is more CCM, and then we also want to help people that may come from a more traditional thing, kind of, help them, and that's why we include like the hymn and other things. Our goal is to try to help them to take them from where they are to being able to connect with God in that particular week. So
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I know usually like my rule of thumb when it comes to selecting music is more so lyrical content more than stylization.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like my goal, like as a worship leader, to pastor people outside of their preferences. So while we may have like hymns, I'll infuse it with something gospel or contemporary, because to kind of show that worship is little to do with your preference and more about what you're giving to God, like your allegiance to God and your praise towards the Lord. So I think for me, like having like an eclectic type of music kind of shies away from people's need to feel like, oh, we're more traditional, oh, we're more contemporary. No, anything that's going to lift up God, that is actually going to sing the words of God, connect you with your faith, that's what we're going to use.
Yeah, I think another component of that, and I think that's a powerful thing. Sometimes, like, especially when you've been in church, like you said, for a long time,
Right.
like you'll have your preference, and sometimes you'll elevate the preference to a place like, well, if they're not singing my preference, then they're doing something wrong. When it's not really about that.
Right.
But I think the other thing is thinking about the people that are far from God, right? So what is going to be some of those things that help them connect to God? And that's why I like kind of the approach here,
Right.
where we're putting a number of different elements in place to try to help as many people that enter into the walls of the church, and because we in this COVID space, and like literally like the folk online connect with God as well. So it's like that's one of the tensions that, and we've talked about this, like this is one of the tensions that we're kind of dealing with right now, where it's like, how do we still help the people in the building connect with God, and at the same time the people online connect with God?
So you had, since you brought up COVID,
Since
you brought that up.
Okay.
So you had to come in at a time when we actually weren't meeting, or we just started kind of meeting in the service. Like, what was that experience like? Because I know for me, coming from where I'm used to my church being full, and I'm used to everybody lifting their hands, I'm used to everybody like being more responsive, to then coming to a room that's like emptier, everyone's a little more stoic, maybe masked up. It's kind of, I know it was like a culture shock for me, and this is my church, you know what I'm saying? So what was that experience like for you, preaching there for the first time?
I mean, Wendi, it has been like that transition, honestly, of like coming to a place to pastor in the middle of this has been very challenging. So like, I don't know what 90% of the congregation looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I will be,
you just know them from here.
Dude, really, like, so I'm like, so when we're eventually able to take off masks, and I'd be like, those eyes look familiar, right? Yeah. So, no, that's really been a challenge. And I think, like, just of course, even with the wearing a mask and other stuff like that, which we have to do, but that's really just it's been hard, So I think one of the tensions that we're kind of trying to still figure out, and I think we've talked about this too as well, people are coming in, they've gotten used to being online. So for the people in the building, how do we help them to connect with God? And, it's been, we're trying some different things. One of the things I know that we can't do though is stop tweaking. And so we're going to continue. We're going to have to, because again, the tension that we're trying to manage is, how do we help as many people connect with God, both in the building
and outside of the building
and online, and so we're constantly trying to figure out what that happy middle is, to do that. I mean, Wendi, for you right now, I mean, because you are kind of our point person, in worship and leading worship at the church. I mean, I know there's some unique challenges for you. There's some thoughts that you have about, how do we bridge that divide, or how do we manage that tension between helping people connect with God in the building, and also how do we help them connect online?
It's interesting because I think being in the season of COVID, you have, a group of people that kind of got used to just their worship experiencing being more spectator-esque, So I would be interested to see, like, if we still had to do like anything online, how we can engage people from their homes. Like, I'm not just in the comments, but getting them to actually engage in their own spiritual walk, take a step further, maybe, just to see, just so that they can know this isn't spectatory, or this is not just for your viewing pleasure. This is actually for your personal advancement, I know coming back to church, it kind of felt like people were just kind of used to just, oh, we're gonna watch people sing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because we've been doing that.
Because we've been doing this for a year and a half. You know,
we've just been watching.
Yeah, we're just gonna be watching you, and it's
Yeah.
like, hey, how about you remember when we used to clap our hands, or we used to involve ourselves in the process? We used to connect to the music, and I think if there's ways, if we do have to continue going offline, I would like to kind of figure out a cool way to re-engage them so that they're not just spectating, they're not just looking for pure entertainment, because there's so many wonderful ministries to choose from.
Right.
You know what I mean? So at the same time, I you know, I don't want to have to get into the system of we're compete with this ministry or this church or whatever.
Right.
Really just kind of hone in on our group of people.
Right.
And potential new people, and pastor them online without just the sermon or without just the music.
Yeah.
Something extra. I don't know what that is, but I just would like to see us maybe push it a little bit more, make it a little more intentional, connected.
Yeah, and I don't think, you know, honestly, I think for the majority of churches, we all are still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a new space that we're all in. And one of the things that I know for myself, and, you know, our staff right now, we're going through just a powerful book by Mark Batterson.
Yeah,
But I think one of the core kind of, you know, thoughts out of that book, though, is just the willingness to take those steps of faith, the willingness to be able to sometimes fail, to learn from that, because we believe in a God that says in Psalms 37, 23, and 24 that our steps are ordered by him.
Yeah.
So if we believe that, that means even the steps where we like maybe stumble a little bit, or okay, you know what, we had an idea to do announcements at the end of service and it didn't go as well as we thought. We're like, maybe that thing didn't really land.
Right.
But we're okay with that because God's ordering our steps.
Right.
So even that, or even whatever adjustments we make, and then we make tweaks, we know God is teaching us in the process something. So it's we all trying to figure this thing out, you know, but we got to have the courage to go ahead and try to figure it out.
Yeah. So in trying to figure it out, I know for us, like, we've done, you know, a few online ministries, or we tried to kind of try our hand on doing like music videos for our worship services.
Yeah.
I know, like, in that process, it became apparent to me, like, okay, we're doing this and we're singing other people's songs,
right,
doing this, you know, when they could actually like click on YouTube,
right,
and see, you know, the same song done better by the original artist.
Right. I got you. Yeah.
So it kind of dawned on me to really start thinking about creating our own like worship songs, you know?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in terms of like the worship ministry? Like, what is your vision that you would like to see based off of the things that you know about us?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, Wendi, I'm really just in a space where I'm listening, observing, and just trying to get a sense of just the state of the church and where we're at. You know, so to me, like, it would almost be pastoral malpractice to come in
and just start doing.
Yeah, I've only been here a few weeks, you know. So are there some things just in the COVID space that were things I was like, okay, you know what, we actually do need to address that. We can't just kind of continue to kind of move forward in that. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be those things. You know, you see something going over the cliff or something that needs to be adjusted.
Manage that.
Yeah, you have to just go ahead and address it. But just kind of as you know, when we talk about the direction of the church as a whole, I mean, you have to literally prayerfully watch, observe, and then wait for a word from God, you know.
Yeah.
But I think at its core, the main thing that we have to be doing is, as I've just said repeatedly, connecting people with God. That is what
number one.
Right. So even, you know, and so one of my, you know, part of that as far as philosophies of worship is just, you know, trying to make sure that there are not a lot of distractions in the service, right?
That's good.
So, you know, so we don't want to be distractions, you know, as we want for folk to be able to not see us as much as they to see God.
Yeah.
I think just even how the service is flowing can be a distraction because those will be like, yo, what's up with this service?
It's difficult to navigate. Like
Yeah.
I know for me, like what made me get into this position is like my own like conversion experience and knowing like, wow, like worship is more so just a response of your relationship with the Lord. Like I know he's God and I know he's good, so therefore I worship him and I to please him, right?
Right.
So when I decided, okay, this is what I wanted to do with my life, my mantra was, okay, I set atmospheres of worship and I teach other people to do the same, you know?
Yeah.
And everything that I do, like even whatever position I'm in, that's usually like how I go looking at it. I'm interested to see like how can we intentionally help people set their personal atmospheres of worship? Like how much control or influence do we have over that as a church? And where, I don't know, what are some of the things that you see us doing to navigate people's personal worship environment?
Yeah, so I think we have to figure out how to, challenge people to take that next step.
Yeah.
So sometimes the way that that's done is it may be like at the end of a service, there may be some challenge points.
Yeah.
Hey, here's some things that you can do. But I think the other step, and this is a part of the Ruby strategy, is not only are we trying to help people to connect with God, having meaningful relationships with him, but we also need for them to move into community.
Right.
So
That's
if
good.
that next step is, even in the virtual space, hey, joining our online groups. Now that's, right now in COVID, it's like, because we were designed to do community together in person, not virtually.
Yeah.
So I know I got some witnesses right now that are just like, man, this is a struggle. But I think that next step has to be moving from, okay, here's a challenge. Here's some things that I'm going to take steps of faith in my life, because really where God is trying to do for all of us is he's trying to move us he's trying to move us to a place where we believe God in every area of life.
Right.
So after every worship service, there's got to be something that is like moving me to that next step of faith where I believe God in a new area, where I wasn't believing in him before.
Yeah.
But then for that thing to continue to grow, I have to be in community. And so if I can take that next step, whether it be online or in person, then that's the next thing we got to do. And so we got to, you could do online challenges. And just trying to have those on-ramps online to try to help people get there.
Yeah.
So we're going to be experimenting. We're going to be figuring that thing out. But I know God he's in control.
Yeah, he is.
He's leading the body of Christ. And he's promised that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. And that means we're on the offensive.
Yeah.
We're pushing forward. But this is God's church. And he's not going to fail. So
That's good stuff.
Wendi.
That's good stuff.
My sister.
Thank you, Pastor Alfonzo.
Yo, good. Hey, yeah. All right. Yo, I'll be hearing that from now on. Like,
from me.
Yeah.
I'm calling you Pastor Alfonzo.
That's all good. It's all good. Yeah.